And you said you're working on a Super-PAC for Senator Cruz?
Yes, sir. Keep the promise one.
What brought you into the Cruz tent? What about him?
I just think he's been the most consistent. He's stood by his word. He's the promises he's made. He's kept to the best of his ability. And on top of that, I think there's a lot of good guys in the group. But I think he's also built the infrastructure to keep going beyond Iowa. He's not counting on Iowa to launch him into something bigger.
What do you think about his persona? He's getting criticized a lot because, he worked for Bush. He actually tried to get the president's support before he ran for Senate on the Washington cartel. He's getting 20% of his funds from Wall Street. Do you think an average person should think he's credible?
I think so. I think he's still been consistent. I mean, we're in Iowa. We're talking about people that standing up to folks. I mean, he comes into Iowa and goes after, or he doesn't gone after. They've come after him, the ethanol lobby. He's consistently said at their event last year and this year, that he's for all energy sources. So I think that's a pretty bold stand. The other night at the debate, they did a split screen with him with the governor, and he stood his ground there. So
what about the Wall Street stuff? On one end, Hillary's gotten bashed for that. He's gotten a hedge fund guy in New York gave him $11 million. This hedge fund, Robert Mercer, wants to abolish the IRS. I mean, why should we think he's not another politician who's going to get in and scratch the backs of the people who got him there?
Well, I hope he abolishes the IRS. I hope that's something he does. That's people want. I guess from what I understand with a lot of the money, and I know some of these big guys are giving money to the super PACs. I also understand that some of the other donations that you see come from some of these bigger guys are actually their employees. It's some of those type of deals.
Financial institutions.
Yeah. But he's still getting. He's leading, if not one of the top guys that are getting grassroots support from people from all over the place.
But isn't there a problem when you're, a guy who's attacked the bailouts, attacked Wall Street, that you're getting all these donations? Like Bernie Sanders, for example. Wouldn't it be odd if he was crusading against Wall Street on one end, but then 20% of his funds come from there? It seems like it doesn't match.
Well, I guess it's depending on how you act. Do you think you can trust the guy or not?
You do.
And I absolutely do. Yeah, I've sat down with him. I've sat down with his wife several times, and his dad, and just honestly trust him. He's actually gone after a lot of those people, and hasn't backed down, and is very consistent in what he says and what he does.
In terms of actually legislating. You see all these articles. Nobody likes him in Congress. He loves that. That's the point. But when you get in, how can anything get done if he's not going to do anything unless it's pretty much everything he wants and no compromise?
Well, I guess.
I mean, trust me, Obama's compromised too much, but you got to compromise a little, or.
Sure. As you said, the part. Having all the right enemies is a good thing in my mind. We've had a lot of these guys that were supposedly cushy with those guys. They either don't get elected, or when they do, they go sell us out. They wanted the House in 2010. We gave them that. We didn't get anything we wanted. We gave them the Senate in 2014. They didn't. They still haven't. It's just like.
Well, how can you get what you want if you have a Democratic president?
There was a lot of ways they could have stood up to him. There were several chances where they would have made him actually push the president into having to sign something.
Can you name a specific issue that could happen?
Absolutely. On the defund Planned Parenthood, they were going to attach it to the highway bill that the president absolutely wanted, and it was a 51 vote. Leadership didn't stand up with him. They bailed on him and Mike Lee, and then put through a show vote that was requiring the 60 votes. So, yeah, absolutely, they could have done something like that.
About those kinds of things, what specifically is the problem with a highway bill, or, for example, health care for more people? What's your opposition to some of the more Democratic or even moderate positions?
I don't necessarily have a problem with the highway bill. It was going to be put onto a highway bill. There are certain things the federal government should do. And infrastructure, some of that stuff is part of that. Healthcare isn't part of what the federal government should.
So let's talk about Obamacare. That he says on day one, I'm getting rid of it. All these things. The Obamacare came out of the Heritage Foundation. It was originally a conservative plan, but Senator Cruz and others have decried it as socialism, the end of America. What specifically about giving people subsidies for health care is socialism and all that?
Well, I think it's taking the freedom out of the market. They're forcing people to buy something. One is one of the biggest things. People are losing their health care that had it and liked their plan. They weren't allowed to keep their plan. Their premiums are skyrocketing. They're having to, you pay the fines. I think a lot of people have just dropped down to pay the fines because it's cheaper, and they're not getting to keep their plans. So I'm a free market guy. I think, one of the things I've heard Senator Cruz talk about a lot on the healthcare front, and I've heard a lot of people say this because people ask, hey, if you want to get rid of it, what are you going to put into change? I've heard him talk a lot about opening it up so where you can buy it from more than just your own state. So opening up to more competition and that type of thing.
Well, with the healthcare, I mean, the way it was before, we're paying as taxpayers for an uninsured person going into the emergency room, and you hear repeal and replace, but there's no really fine print or explanation on the replace. So I understand you saying you shouldn't be compelled to buy health insurance, but you're compelled to get car insurance. You're compelled to do a lot of things. So is it right that you and I should have to pay for all the uninsured? Forgetting the moral point of it, whether we should help people, why are we paying for the uninsured then before Obamacare? It doesn't seem like the system before worked in the free market that you're talking about.
I don't know that it was really a free market. It seems like the more the government's got involved, the worse the costs are driven up. It used to be people were taken care of and they paid what they could afford. If you look at some of the stuff that's elective, some of those type of surgeries, eye surgery, if people want to get the, I can't remember what it's called, LASIK surgery, elective plastic surgery, things like that. Those are things people can afford, because if they were on the insurance, then they'd be probably immensely expensive as well. So, ultimately, free market guy. I'm not going to stand here and pretend I know Ted Cruz's healthcare plan inside and out. Although I've heard him talking about it because people have been asking those questions. Competition, reinstitute competition is one of the key factors.
Well, do you believe that there should be universal health insurance, or you think it's kind of, if you can get it, great. If you can't,
No, I don't know that insurance is a right, but again, I think if you pull some of the stuff out of there, a lot of those costs will go down. If people can't afford it, they're going to quit making things. But if they have that safety net where they know the insurance or those type of things are going to just pay for it.
Isn't one of the biggest problems just insurance companies essentially allowed to do what they want, jack up prices, which is still happening under Obamacare? Isn't something like a Medicare plan where private insurance is taken out? Because insurance companies, over the years, it doesn't seem like they're that concerned about health. It seems like they're concerned about profits and these kinds of things. Should business and health be intertwined?
I don't.
That's the whole reason pre-existing conditions wasn't covered.
Sure. And I think there's provisions you can make for that. I was talking with a gentleman here not too long ago about I can't remember what country it was, but they were going back to basically, the neighborhood doctor, where you could actually pay the guy in cash, and you could, but when you get in so many of these regulations, you get lawsuits and all that kind of stuff thrown into it. I think it gets a little nutty. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's obviously huge money in the industry. There's no question. Do you want people not to be covered? No. It seems like this system. It seems like Obamacare's made it worse as opposed to making it better. Because I think a lot of the insurance companies were right on board with Obamacare because they were going to get to write they get to help write the rules.
Well, we met a woman at Hillary Clinton's campaign. She had a very young daughter who had cancer. Because of Obamacare, she can get covered. So it's helped quite a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's anecdotal. I'm sure some people have been helped, but there's also you can go out and find the stories where people can't afford health insurance anymore because whether they're working or whatever the case may be.
Last question. Not just Senator Cruz, but immigration. Donald Trump has elevated that. Senator Cruz now has said we need to build a wall and whatnot. Is he credible on this? I mean, he worked for President Bush. He helped write President Bush's immigration policy on the campaign, which was leading to comprehensive immigration. It seems like he's kind of reversed himself on immigration over the years, essentially to cater to the voters.
I don't know what his. I have heard that a little bit on the Bush stuff. I think it's.
He was on Bush's campaign. He was the domestic policy, one of the domestic policy advisors. So he helped write his immigration plan, which was teetering over to comprehensive.
For that end, sure. Again.
Is that just another evolution?
It's possible. There's a lot of these guys have changed. I think his.
Changed to get elected?
who knows?
His whole image is, you know, I'm the virtuous one, I'm genuine, but he's changed. I mean, how could an anti-establishment guy in 2011 sit down with President George W. Bush, pretty much disliked on both sides, and ask for his support if he hates the Washington cartel?
I think maybe that's a kiss the ring thing. I don't know. You know, he's from Texas. You know, he worked for the guy. That's where he met his wife. Was on their campaign trail.
Right, but I'm saying if you're running as an anti-establishment guy, if President Bush came out, that's not exactly.
Well, but you've seen President Bush's quotes about Senator Cruz. He doesn't like the guy. So to me, I guess that's the better endorsement than if he would have maybe endorsed him.
So overall, you don't think Cruz is just a jilted lover who couldn't get in the establishment? I mean, no. I mean, he wanted to be in Bush's administration after, you know, he's written about it, this and that, and then he went down to be Solicitor General. You don't think it's the type of thing that, it's not that I hate the establishment, it's just human nature. When you get rejected,
I guess I never thought about it that way. I mean, it's a funny way to put it, but no. I mean, I think you know, in talking with him, you know, my views have changed over 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. I think he's been consistent. Megyn Kelly even said the other night that, you know, she came back around to say, yeah, you're right. You did try to kill this, you know, and I don't know if it was an apology, I guess, but so no. I mean, people change their views a little bit. I don't know that I would go that far. I don't get that sense when I've talked to him and when I've talked to the people close to him.